Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patricia Gagnon, and I'm one of the co-founders of Intellispark. I'm joining you today from Arlington, Virginia. The topic for today's discussion, accelerating student support by unlocking impact through improved communication and collaboration, is the topic that we are laser focused on at Intellispark. Practically all of the major innovations we are delivering this year on our platform focus on faster, more mobile, and interactive ways of keeping team members in the loop. As we thought about what educator experience would be helpful to share with our community at the start of the year, one topic quickly rose to the top: the great work our partners are doing to quickly identify and provide necessary support to the range of needs their students face. In many cases, the number of people supporting a given student continues to increase as the needs diversify. We wanted you to hear how our Intellispark partners are better coordinating that care, both with internal and external partners, and how better communication capabilities are multiplying the impact of that care just by improving awareness across a team. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly share an agenda for today's session. First, just to anchor everyone in the latest communication capabilities of the platform and to give you a taste of what is soon to come, my colleague, Ken Brehrman, will share a few slides to set the stage. Right after this, we will move into introductions of our panelists, and then we'll dive right into the discussion and close with about 10 minutes of Q&A. While we can't hear or see you, we do encourage you to engage through the chat and Q&A so that we can do our best to get to the topics that you'd find helpful. My colleagues Ken and James will be monitoring the chat. And please note that this session is being recorded, and we will make it available online in case you'd like to share it with a colleague. Be on the lookout for 2 emails from us in the coming days, one with a certificate of attendance and the other with a link to the recording. Both emails will include information on how you can connect with the Intellispark team and our wonderful panel of educators. Now I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Ken Brehrman, our head of sales and marketing, to set the stage.
Thank you so much, Patricia. So I want to give you just a quick rundown on some of the things that are new with Intellispark, as we really want to engage the entire student team to support kids. We know with principals and deans especially, we're always on the move. So with mobile-first messaging, we're able now to allow real-time communication in the building. When we identify that something's going on with Carla, we can quickly at her and get information out to the students' team. Also from your phone, you're able to see a quick picture of what's going on with the students that you support and take action right from there. Then another big step forward that we're working on is to allow for real-time problem solving. Often today, we end up having to wait for a meeting to be able to have some of these conversations, and we never know when a student's going to need support, and we kind of need it in how we can cut through some of the red tape to support them. And so as you're able to see your activity feed of the students you're supporting, you can take action, ask a question, add a comment in real time. And then lastly, often we start with admin teams and student support teams, but teachers are kept in the loop. Often, sometimes they feel like they're the last to know. We make sure each Monday morning they get an update of what items that they have, referrals they've made that have been addressed. And all of this communication populates onto the student profile. So we have one big picture of this narrative of support for the student. This marries really well with your MTSS dashboards or student information system. We then bring not just the data points, but the narrative of support and the student story along with it. Be happy to dive in deeper with you if you're interested to explore this further. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ken. Okay, great. So now I'd like to introduce you to our panelists who hail from Berkeley County, West Virginia, and Aspen, Colorado. And I want to say that these four fabulous educators have come to us through different ways. The Berkeley County team were some of our first users of Intellispark several years back. And have been great advisors on what else needs to come in the platform. So some of what you experienced today may have come from guidance from Shelby and Allie. And then our team from Aspen, Colorado, Ashley and Carolina, came to us because they were using Scholar Centric in Aspen, Colorado. That's our resiliency assessment. And more recently have started to use the Intellispark capability, the Intellispark Pro capabilities across their district. So they came to us in different ways, but they've been fabulous partners, and we love learning from them. And that's why we're really excited for you to learn from them today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to share, what their role, what school they're serving, and their role within the district. And then I'm also going to ask Shelby and Ashley to share a little bit about the dynamics. What are some of the details about the district and the students that they serve? So Shelby, I'm going to start with you, please.
Hi, so I'm Shelby Glover. I'm one of the assistant principals at Martinsburg High School in Berkeley County. Specifically, I'm in charge of special education, teaching and learning at Martinsburg High School. Berkeley County is about 75 miles northwest of Washington, D.C. So in many ways, we are like a small suburb of Washington, D.C. We have a population of about 122,000. There are 4 high schools, 6 middle schools, 6 intermediate schools, and 16 elementary schools in our county with a total population of almost 20,000 students. Demographically, we have a countywide about 42% economically disadvantaged students. Countywide 3% EL students, English learning students. At Martinsburg specifically, we're actually more at about 4%. We're almost double the county. And I would also say that Martinsburg is, we're countywide, we are 71% Caucasian. At Martinsburg High School, we're 57% Caucasian. So Martinsburg High School is a bit of an outlier in terms of our county as a whole, in many different subgroups of population. But that is a little bit about us. We're in the panhandle of West Virginia. And I would like to now introduce my colleague, Allie Freem.
Hi, I'm the Student Assistant Facilitator at Martinsburg High School. So I am the chairperson for IEP meetings, and I handle all 504s. This is my first year in this position. Formerly, I was a special education teacher at Martinsburg High School for 7 years.
Great. Thank you very much, Shelby and Allie. And now I'd like to introduce Ashley Botkins from Aspen. Over to you, Ashley.
Hi, my name is Ashley Bodkins. I'm the elementary school principal here in Aspen. Aspen, Colorado is a rural school district. It's located in the Rocky Mountains. It's about 3.5 hours from Denver. And it has a huge tourism, so through both in the summer and the winter. And so our population really explodes in the winter months. We have 5 schools in our district. So we have one campus that has an elementary school, a preschool, a middle school, and a high school. And then we also have a charter school that's part of our district. We serve grades pre-K through 12, and we have approximately 1,600 students. We've got a pretty low teacher to student ratio, 12:1. And we have about 17% minority. Our district is ranked overall in the top 20% in the state of Colorado. And we pride ourselves on having a very robust outdoor education program. We're also an international baccalaureate district, becoming one in the primary years program. And I'll turn it over to Carolina, who will introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Carolina Lozano. I work on the district as a case manager or also family navigator. I have been working on the district for 10 years in different roles, a Spanish teacher. I also did 1 year a special ed teacher. And now, since last year, I joined the team Aspen Family Connection, where I will explain a little later what we do in Aspen Family Connection. But basically, it's as Aspen, it's a family resource center.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. As you can see, we've got some great experience here on the panel. And with that, we're going to dive right in. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a time so you can see our educators as they're sharing their information. So the first question that we have is, I'm going to ask someone from each of the districts to share the evolution of the student family needs that you've seen in the district over the last 3 to 4 years, and then the resources that you've had to enlist to best support those needs. So I'm going to start with you, Shelby, for Berkeley County.
Yeah, so in Berkeley County, we are, like I said, in the panhandle of West Virginia. So what that means for us is that within 10 minutes, we can have teachers that can drive to Pennsylvania, Maryland, or Virginia, and honestly make a significant more amount of money. And because of that, we are seeing a teacher shortage. We don't have locality pay in West Virginia. So even though the panhandle is a bit different from the rest of our state, it is the same pay. And so because of that, we have a teacher shortage, like I said, and a decent percentage of the teachers that we do have on staff today are permanent subs and aren't necessarily trained teachers through a teacher preparation program. So sometimes those permanent subs struggle more so with classroom management, forming connections with students. And for me, it's much easier for me to help a teacher and support a teacher through mentorship with the curriculum. And I will certainly support them in classroom management. But what we have seen through Intellispark is it has aided us a bit in giving teachers, letting teachers kind of have courageous conversations with each other and let them have ownership of best practices for our staff as a whole, and share what is working with students, so that for someone who is a permanent sub and maybe doesn't have the ability or the tools to problem solve when a student is misbehaving or they're not able to form that relationship, other teachers are able to chime in and share what works for them in Intellispark. And there's a certain need for accountability, I think, post-pandemic, and that's something we're working on. We've integrated these habits of work rubrics school-wide, and letting all of the teachers kind of be on the same page about the student allows us to hold students more accountable, because we can kind of pretty easily tell when a student is maybe not being incredibly honest with us, or maybe something else is going on and we don't want them to have to explain it to every person.
Shelby, one thing that you mentioned was this notion of courageous conversations. I love that expression. So are you saying that the fact that they can see who else is on the team, they also know who might be having success with the student and know who to connect with about the student?
Yeah, exactly. So they're able to not only put things in Intellispark itself, but just go and have a conversation with that person. And I think that sometimes we're apprehensive to ask for help. It's hard. It's hard to admit defeat. It's hard to admit that you don't know what to do. But when some of our more seasoned teachers are posting on a student's page that they're currently experiencing a certain behavior, anything working for anyone else, and they see that teacher able to post that, I think that's what I mean also by courageous conversations, is just that it creates some buy-in for all teachers to have ownership in getting that student re-engaged in school. And so some of the new teachers or perm subs who don't have experience feel like, okay, this isn't just me and I'm willing to go ahead and put myself out there as well. Whereas without it, they may feel just stuck in their classroom and helpless.
So not as isolating or like they're on an island feeling alone on this. That's great. Thank you. And Carolina, can you also share this, the evolution you've seen? You've been with Aspen for over 10 years now. What has changed and what you're seeing and how you're supporting?
Yes. Yeah, since Aspen Family Connection was created 7 years ago, and the school district started seeing increase of needs, family needs, community needs in different ways, and mental health, substance use, a lot of it's a mountain resource, a lot of parties here. So families has different needs in here, but we have seen increasing like mental health and substance use. All the family, the dynamic is difficult sometimes for kids because a lot of divorce. We saw a lot of those problems, family engagement and conflict, and how the school is helping or supporting this thing. The school district has put in resources like school-based program for mental health. We have last year we have an organization helping here in school called Mind Sprints, and this year we changed another one is called Hope Center, which every child who needs mental support, they have access to this therapy in the school. So it's all the time, all the changes, the needs are moving fast, and we are working together as a team with Aspen Family Connection and the district, putting all these resources that I can explain more if you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what has been your sense of the uptake from students? You know, when these services were first offered, did you find students were seizing on them right away, or did the pump need to be primed a little bit?
So usually when the teacher is the first person who sees like something is going on the child or needs, usually the teacher right away talk to the counselor, and the counselor make a referral to Aspen Family Connection and make that contact very fast. The communication is as quickly, and right away the teacher can ask the counselor, do you know more about this child? And the child make the referral to us, and the counselor make the referral to us, asking the family permission, and we call the family, we contact the family, and we find out more about those needs and how what we can give to offer to them, what resource there are in the community. We have, as I said, well, Ashley said, it's like a lot of money in this town. We try to find those resources and help those family with those resources that we have in the community. We are very good doing those connections, the funding needs with the resources in the community. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So I'm going to move on to the next question, and that has been, you know, how have you, and you started to answer this, Carolina, how have you been able to accelerate your identification of these needs and your ability to service these needs? So I'm going to step over to Allie for a moment to hear what that has been like in Berkeley County, in terms of just accelerating the identification pieces. Shelby started to share the Intellispark piece, but what have you seen, Allie?
I've seen our identification of these needs have definitely been accelerated through the use of Intellispark. We have a really high transfer rate throughout our inter-county schools, and then we have 3 different feeder programs that can come from multiple different middle schools into the high school. So now we're able to see the different supports a student was offered at their former school. We do a getting to know you survey and a survey to plan for the future through Intellispark, and this helps our teachers form better relationships with students. It also helps in the creation of 504s and IEPs. I was just sitting in a 504 meeting with a student who was struggling, and I pulled up their Intellispark page, and a teacher had made a comment about how they moved her seat right beside the teacher's desk, and it's made a world of difference in their class. So then I put that in the 504 plan to help her succeed in her other classes as well.
A great example.
For us, we use this weekly meeting with all the teams. Aspen Family Connection is working with all this school that Ashley mentioned: elementary school, middle school, high school, preschool, and we have weekly meetings with at-risk team. We call at-risk team, and we assess those needs and how everyone is in each different role is helping that kid and that family. And now with we're more new using Intellispark, we are seeing that the communication is faster. We can assign teams and around that kid and who is doing what in response, or what is the resource that the kids is receiving. And that communication is faster than before, that we used to use other systems. We have seen a lot of improvement in that, and how fast we move. Yeah.
Where were you keeping that information before, Carolina? Connie?
In Google Sheets. Every school, because Aspen Family Connection is working with different school, every school had their own system. So we have to, okay, now it's in this Google Sheet, now it's in this spreadsheet, that is in a Google Doc. So when I learn about Intellispark, I say, yes, we are going to have all together in the same spot, and everyone have access. And the good thing, the confidentiality, sorry, I can say that word very well. It's like the information is confidential, so you can just select the kid that you are working with and see that information for that kid. And yeah, it's really useful and fast.
So having one home base for the information is already taking effect. I know, just for anyone who's newly listening or new to Intellispark, know that some of this particular capability, some of the Aspen schools are just starting, so it's great to hear. I've been blown away in the first 2 months of this part of your next step of utilization. Has been pretty impressive, so well done. Thank you to both of you. So the next question I have, really kind of, you just led right into it, Carolina, is around this topic of student data privacy. We know that educators, classroom educators, people who are not in the classroom every day, but supporting kids across the district, just are innately helpers and want to give the very best care to their students. And we haven't always made it easy for people to be part of solving the problem, to be in on that conversation. And I wanted to ask, this is for Ashley and Allie, how important is it for classroom teachers who work with students day to day to be aware of these services that their students are receiving? And how do you manage these sensitive issues in a manner that helps them to do their job well, but also respects student data privacy? And has this been an issue in your community, or how do you navigate that if it has been? So I'll start with Ashley.
Thanks, Patricia. Yes, I think that I think the issue has been in being able to communicate with every member of the team in the same way, and then also tracking that information over time. As Carolina was saying, in our school, we used, we have a very, very long Google Doc, and because of privacy, we're not able to share those notes out with everyone who really should be seeing some of those notes on particular students. So with Intellispark, we can take those conversations or those interventions or those notes or how a student is being supported and just specifically share it with the people on the team who need to see that. And then the other piece of it is that if there is information that is sensitive, it can be marked as that, so that we're not sharing every detail, but just sharing what's pertinent to those people on the team. And I love in our conversations, we bring up, okay, if a child has maybe just had a death in the family, you might not want to put all of that information into Intellispark, but you certainly want that to be a handle with care child. And so being able to have that go out to every member of the team is super important. And I think that as we want to create these in our schools, a sense of belonging in students, we know that that is the most important aspect of social emotional learning, is having that true sense of belonging. We can really create those connections that will then enhance that. Because if you're, again, putting a note in on a student and then the teacher's able to make that connection, oh, I learned that you did X, Y, or Z. Maybe it's something that they got through a high five, where it's like, oh, I heard that you just did an amazing job in so-and-so's class. It helps that child to feel that sense of belonging there. And so, what I'm seeing so far in our short time of using Intellispark is just that we're able to make sure that we're communicating out in a way that is it's centralized, it's tracked over time, and really creates just a history of that student. Any kind of sensitive information can be reserved only for those who have that high level of access. But then otherwise, we're really able to track and share our student information well.
Yeah, and I've really loved how your cross-district communication has been. I think you've really been very mindful on what is at what level, what should be at what level. And Allie, how has this worked for you in Berkeley County, specifically at Martinsburg?
We think it's very important for the teachers to be aware of the services the students receiving. We have 3 social workers that work here at Martinsburg High School, and it's really important for the students' teachers to know that they are working with that student. They don't need to know the confidential information, but that way when the student's having a rough day, they're having a lot of emotions, their teachers know who they can send them to support that student. We also manage the sensitive information by tagging it as such. I don't feel like the student privacy has been that big of an issue within our community or state, and I think Intellispark has probably helped with that because it's gotten all of the students, teachers on one team instead of, because they can only see the students that they have, and only that kid's teachers can see their page. So it really helps everyone to just be on the same page and work together for that student.
I think you also had shared with me at one point, Allie, that when your school system was switching over your student information, the statewide student information system, they didn't have all the information that they needed, and they were actually able to be on the same page because of Intellispark, because the student information system for the state wasn't quite there
Absolutely,
yet.
we relied on Intellispark.
Yeah, that was great to hear. Okay, so I think everybody loves an inspiring story, and loves to hear, what are those highlights that we hold out and motivate us through the days. And I'm wondering, Carolina and Allie, if you can share just some of your favorite success stories in terms of impact that these more significant wraparound services have had on some of your student outcomes. It sometimes means going the extra mile to get this next level of service for kids. But can you share some great impact stories, Carolina, and then Allie?
Sure. Here in Aspen, as I said, teachers are used to the kids, they don't need enough like food, or there are some particular kids that they sometimes they think that the kids have everything here in Aspen because the Aspen town, but there are some kids who come here and they live. They're a Latino family, or they live in an RV because parents come here to work because they have a good salary here, but they don't. The housing is a big problem, and we start seeing more of that community coming to Aspen. So teachers are not that aware that we have those kids here, but we have it. So a couple of weeks ago, we have a student that was new in school, and the teacher noticed that they didn't have any food or snack to eat, and they just, because they were in the middle school, reached out to us, and right away we talked to the counselor, then the counselor made a referral. We called the family, and we find out that the family was living in an RV and they didn't have enough food and enough clothes. And we right away we put him with Makino Bento and free lunch, all the kids. And we found out also they have a student in the elementary school, so the same family. Right away we put in Intellispark the communication, and we said this family is working with Family Connection. And then right away the elementary school noticed that this family need more support, extra support. And they have an outdoor ed going to Moab, those kids. And at the beginning, they didn't have anything to go, like clothes, the right clothes to go, the sleeping bag. And we moved fast. And in 1 week, we found everything for that family, and that the kid went there and have a successful, and beautiful trip. And we were proud because we moved fast, and we couldn't believe that those kids are in this community, but those kids are around, and those family need support, extra support. Yeah.
That's great. And again, so truly you're accelerating your support. And I think it also flags that we just can't make assumptions, right? In a community, we really need to know every student as well as we can. And so, that's our goal, is to have everyone have that be known by the team. And Allie as well, I know you must have some great highlights.
So last year when I was a case manager, I had a student that was marked as having frequent absences by one of their teacher. And I thought that was weird because I see this student every day. So I discovered that they were skipping classes. So I had a conversation with that student, and I discovered that she was having a lot of anxiety going to this one particular class. So I got her in with one of our social workers, and then they got her into Project Aware, which is a therapist that comes to our school every week to meet with students. She's like a licensed therapist. And then by the end of the 9 weeks, she ended up attending her courses again and was able to handle a lot of her anxiety. And we were able to work through it with the social worker and the therapist.
It's amazing that in 9 weeks.
Yeah.
I guess if it's at the right time, but that makes a huge difference versus losing a year of learning or even more. So,
and when they know that somebody's checking in on them and that we're all on the same page.
that is fantastic. Congratulations. So this next question is around that we're kind of shifting into the Intellispark world. I'm going to start with you, Shelby. How has Intellispark facilitated this collaboration and communication amongst those who are working on any given student, like trying to get everyone on the same page, and then just make sure that you're moving in harmony and not losing time?
So I've worked in high school my entire career. So I'm nearing, I think, starting year 15, but I have never been able to have quality data teams in person at our level. At Martinsburg High School, we have almost 100 teachers, and really any grade level beyond 9th grade, there is not a lot of horizontal connectedness between the courses that a teacher is teaching. So they might be teaching some 10th grade courses, 11th, 12th grade courses, 9th grade courses. It's not simple. And so what we've been able to do is have those discussions in the moment in Intellispark, give feedback, follow up in a thread, so that other teachers can communicate what they're seeing. And it has kind of gotten everyone on board, instead of maybe sending out an email about teacher reports and then you get it back from a handful of people, but then you never reference that email again or can't find it again. In this sense, that it can be kind of more of a discussion board on a student, so that when I'm struggling with a particular student, I can go to their Intellispark profile, see what's been working, what hasn't been working, touch base with other teachers. And like I said earlier, maybe even have an in-person conversation. If I know somebody right down the hall it is working well with that student. Even as an administrator, I'll go down and ask them, offer to pay them a little extra money after school to tutor that student. and sit with that student, because if they are a positive role model and have created that connection and that sense of belonging for that student, that's really important for us. We do use it through our student assistance team. We call that SAT. We meet weekly, and basically that also gives us a really good picture. When we meet, we're usually trying to decide things that fall outside of policy many times, and we really try to get a whole picture. So while a counselor maybe bring a particular situation, usually Miss Ream is the one that has Intellispark pulled up and says, well, I see a note here from, Miss Glover, and she is saying that she's offered all of these opportunities, and right now the student's not maybe taking advantage of the tutoring. Why don't we do that before we switch this class? And so it just allows us to have a better picture, because we're all able to communicate in that way. And as an administrator, I've kind of really focused on that and not asked my teachers to do that work in any other space. And I really have tried to put value in them dedicating their time to putting that information in a student's profile in Intellispark.
I think, Shelby, you mentioned when you first introduced Intellispark to your staff, you said no more sheets.
Mm-hmm.
No more of these outside the system random forms. And that was your promise to them.
Yes.
And yeah. And it
was the 2021-2022 school year, I think, that, and I presented it to them, and I made them a promise. I said, I will not ask you to fill out a single form, Microsoft form, Google Sheet. I will not ask you to do that anymore. And we have stuck true to that. And anywhere, anytime, I think that we can streamline those processes, we get better communication. So I know there's been more recent talks about other things Intellispark may be looking at providing. And for us, that's really important, because juggling all of the different systems and information, we then may lose something. So sometimes I get a text and it's not a space I'm living in all the time. I'm living in my email, maybe I'm living in Intellispark. And so anything that we can do to narrow that down is really important for us.
Yeah, no, our goal is no other outside streams. We've heard how many people may be chatting about students in their mobile phone. And Ashley, I have the same question for you. Can you speak?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of jotting down some notes around that, and that's my biggest takeaway so far. In that we're, we are really encouraging our teachers in these early stages of bringing on Intellispark to, if they send FYI in an email, we just will kindly respond back and say, thank you for telling us about that. Please just copy and paste that into the notes in Intellispark. And that will help us to track that. And so that's starting to gain traction. And for us, it was exactly what you guys were just talking about. It was the hallway conversations, the text threads, and the emails that were really kind of piling up around. And then we weren't having that, again, back to that clear communication that all members of the team are getting all parts of the story. It would be fragmented. And then when our student assistance team would meet, then it would say, oh, wait, don't you remember this or that? You kind of have this, you're relying on some memory too. Yes, you're documenting, but you're also relying on a lot of memory if it's a hallway conversation or a text, or wait, let me go back and look through and see if I can find that. And this way, it's all right there on one page where you can go back to, and it's so far been very helpful. I think the other thing with communication for facilitating communication with colleagues is the high fives, and being able to give and to look through all the high fives that are going out to students, particularly when they're students that might be struggling in other areas, or maybe you see a high five from a specialist teacher where another specialist teacher might be struggling, or the classroom teacher might be struggling with them. And so again, it just goes to that communication of, how can we find out the best, make that connection with with that student, and move from their strengths too. So I see it as just a brilliant way of communicating, again, building the history and full profile of who the student is.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I do love kind of the building momentum of positivity, you know, because everybody needs that lift, the student as well as the staff on any given day.
And at our middle school and high school, they made it a goal this year that every staff meeting, when they come to, they're going to devote the first 5 to 10 minutes of that staff meeting for a quiet reflection in Intellispark, where you're going in and adding high fives on students. And because they had already onboarded last year or the year before with Intellispark, that's really where they felt they wanted to highlight. And so, you know, it's engaging families that way too, in bringing them into that that positivity about their students. And you know, we've actually even heard from the high fives that we've been putting out, parents will say, oh my gosh, my child got a high five, and they'll know it right away, so that when they come to pick up to get their child, they can say like, hey, I just heard that you were an amazing helper in your classroom, that you were keeping your teacher organized today, or whatever it was. And so that's just like a really positive thing too for parents when they're picking up their child, because often it'll be like, how was school? Great, fine. You know, so to have that and get to them right before, you know, right when they're picking up their student is a great way to engage them as well.
I love it. Love it. You know, one of the things that we sometimes people ask, especially when they're starting out with Intellispark, is, well, and you've all sort of alluded to this, is you may have had different places you were putting things. And so this is a change of practice. I want to ask you, how does Intellispark complement existing processes around student support meetings or protocols? So where did it become this natural complement to anything that you were already doing? You know, does it inform meetings better? Can it replace meetings? What would you say have been some of the greatest areas of complementarity or reinforcement, or replacement even? I'm going to ask Shelby that, and then you as well, Ashley.
So it was really important for us to develop some norms around our use of Intellispark and within our committees and our groups. And so it's a role within all of our teams. So like in our student assistance team, for example, I said before, Allie this year has that role of, as a student goes homebound, we tag that student as a student. If McKinney Vinto, like mentioned before, for homelessness, we tag that student, so that we're really tracking all of that data as best as we can, adding on you know, support people to that student and making sure we're using the support area as well. It's really important that it's basically our data keeper for our meetings, and we feel like we don't have this wait time between figuring things out and then having to sit back down together again. We find that we can really solve problems in a faster manner because of that. And it leads to just more collaborative, more productively collaborative discussions, because it's not just us updating where we're at thus far and then doing the work outside of the meeting. I feel like our meetings are where our work is actually being done, which makes them feel much more useful. I don't tend to be a meeting person, and so anything that can be done in that moment. Sometimes I'm quick on the trigger, and so I like being able to have all of the data that I can in front of me. And I think it's really important that as like administration that we're modeling good behavior. If we have those expectations of our staff members to put that information in Intellispark, we have to do the same. And I think that builds trust within your school system. But when we have conversations with parents, that goes in Intellispark. When we determine something, we're doing all of the same things we're asking our staff to do. And I think that's really important from my perspective, because if I'm not doing it and I'm still sending an email out asking for information, then my teachers are going to lose that buy-in.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And I know that you are highly efficient individual. So the fact that you're able to feel your meetings are now more action oriented because you already have the update from Intellispark, music to my ears. And Ashley, how about for you? How have you, I know that you're still very much in the earlier stages of this, but where are you seeing the complementarities or even replacements?
Well, I would just say exactly. I think obviously they're further along than we are, but as Shelby has described, it really is just that it will make our meetings more efficient, and it'll be that repository for all of that information and data about a student from, all members of their team. It's just, I think it's very intuitive to be able to use. And so with very little professional development for our staff, they're able to pick up on high fives, flags, notes, and begin to, just start small and using that aspect of Intellispark. Um, and then again, it just, to streamline all of those notes that we have in various places. I think that has been where it complements and then exceeds systems that we use. And what I love too is that you guys are so open and responsive to feedback when we say, oh, hey, can I do this? And you're like, no, but let me write that down and pass it along, so that it really does feel like, we can, you guys are willing to help us build like what we want and what we need for students. Because it does not, we did a lot of research this summer into various platforms that we might be able to use to help with our MTSS system, our multi-tiered systems of support, to be able to help with our social emotional referrals, to help with like the surveys that we're sending out to students on belonging and all of those. And so this seemed to be able to wrap everything in. And then, like I said, you're willing to say, oh, it doesn't do that, but let me pass that along. So.
Well, and Shelby, like I said, Shelby and Allie are a couple of years into doing that with us. So yes, it's true. So my last question for you, and then we'll open this the floor to questions is, and again, sorry, Shelby and Ashley, these are for you as well. What advice or best practices would you recommend for administrators or student support teams that are establishing partnerships with either their district level resources or community-based organizations that offer wraparound services for students? So, in terms of really making these partnerships work well, do you have any recommendations for how to make those work well? And of course, if Intellispark helps with that, would love to hear that too. And Shelby, I'll start with you.
So one of the other schools in our district has had a really high turnover of administrative staff. I mean, multiple per year. And that's an outlier for our county. But I think one of the things that has provided stability for the teachers and support personnel in terms of guidance, counselors, and also social workers, project aware, these outside therapists, is Intellispark, because that has been the stability of that's where we're going to track our information, so that as new administrators come in, they can still see what's already been working and what they can continue working on. The one thing I do advise my staff, I think that it is phenomenal that we can get information from middle school to high school, or even when students are transferring from high schools. But the one thing I do try to advise them is to not make predetermined decisions about students. It's wonderful to have that information, but in the same sense, it's also really good that a student could come in with a blank slate. And so take that information and hold it, and maybe let it guide you, but don't let it become a bias. And when you are making decisions about a student, it's just really important. It is important to have that for that continuity of supports for that student as they progress. But at the same time, there is a reality that that student might have had a really bad year, and we don't want that to cloud their future.
Great counsel. And, that's why we also recommend that schools use like the Get to Know Me every year, because the answers may look very different from year to year. And it's an important reminder that they're changing all the time. So it's good to be able to have a fresh start. And
I love that
Ashley,
advice. Yeah, I love that advice, Shelby, because we've already had some teachers, as we're new to this, saying, well, I don't think I want to put that in there because I don't want them to know that about, this amazing little human being. And it's saying it's okay to put it in there and then set that expectation for, taking what's in there as just that, like, and not making those predetermined decisions. So glad to hear you guys are having the same. I mean, I think it's, having the same kinds of conversations is important. I think with our community partners, I think one of the most important things that we do, as Carolina said, we meet weekly, but I think what's most important is to circle back on students that have been brought up in the past too. So just because we've, met and provided a service, it's really important that we go back and we circle back around periodically on how that. And so, we have a system in our meetings for that, but I think Intellispark can really help that process too. When we're circling back and we're looking at like, okay, we've, this support's been in place, this support's been in place, this flag was raised, whatever it is, how is that going? And it gives us that, that history to be able to look back and circle around on. Because I think that's what's most important. We often think, oh yeah, we gave that student, or we helped this family put this in place, or we helped this, student get this counseling check, and it's not really a check. It's always like going back and revisiting. And so I think Intellispark can really help us do that.
It's true that having that support right there, that history right there, the prior supports, the prior flags. Great. Very, very, you're all like very focused with your examples. And I think that that's going to be really helpful for our audience. And so now I'd like to open the floor to our attendees to see if you have any questions you would like to ask, whether about just the supports these panelists have put in place for their kids, any challenges that they've had to overcome, any big wins. Are there any questions? Oh, this is great. Okay, we've got somebody who says, I want this for my elementary school. So, and again, I think this is where nothing tells a story quite like your experience, and hearing it from fellow educators. But let me share my screen again.
Can I say one thing really quickly? Just
absolutely.
based on that, I mean, that's kind of how our experience was. Like, I'm never afraid to share. I'm pretty open. And so that's really how it happened in Berkeley County, is that we had been using it at our school and I kept talking about it all the time. And it was almost making people jealous. I mean, it was a part of our strategic plan. I had data that no one else could have on social emotional learning. So I like that comment, because that is sort of what brought our whole county on, in my opinion.
Well, and I love how, Shelby, you were so willing to share with other schools in your district. And so that was, that takes going above and beyond, and but it helped a lot of educators and resultingly a lot of students. So I'm going to share this, this slide one more time so that you can see the contact information for Shelby and Ali, and for Ashley and Carolina. And they have graciously offered to answer any questions should you have any following this webinar. And we will make sure that this information is also in the follow-up. We will send the recording out, and we'll make sure that you also have their contact information. And then lastly, I just wanted to put our information up again to make sure that if you have any questions for us, you can reach out to our team at any time. And, one of us will certainly be back in touch with you, either Ken or James or I. And, in closing, I just want to say, again, massive thank you to our incredible panelists, because, it takes time to put your thoughts together on at the end of, or in Aspen's case, in the middle of the school day. And we just know how important it is for us to learn from one another. And that is the richness of the community. It's what makes our platform better, is when we learn from you and we can bring you a solution that is even more fine-tuned to your needs. But a lot of what is happening here is not the platform, it's what you're doing every day to support your students. And so to the degree that you can share that with each other and inspire one another and spark an idea or a strategy that benefits just so many people. So I really want to thank all of you, Shelby, Allie, Ashley, and Carolina, and wish you an incredible school year. We know that your students are going to have a great year with you at the helm and coordinating your team. So thank you very much. Oh, and yes, somebody said I was a school counselor at Martinsburg and moved to high school and moved to elementary. What I've learned is that if we don't get it right in elementary, it will certainly impact secondary graduation rate. So yes, we have to be aligned from pre-K to 12. We don't want to wait till we start getting the story on how our kids are. So thank you for sharing that, Jody. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy the rest of the week. Take care.